Rollins' compound eyes tracked the movement below with scholarly precision. The human soldiers moved through their pre-deployment routines in near silence, which unsettled him more than any amount of noise would have. His species, the Viridians, had evolved past warfare 3,000 years ago, relegating it to historical databases and philosophical thought experiments. Watching actual warriors prepare for actual combat felt like observing something from a museum spring to life. They seemed so calm, Kira whispered beside him, her luminous form flickering with uncertainty. The young Lemurii diplomat had never witnessed anything like this. Her people existed as pure energy, incapable of physical violence even if they wanted it. I expected more aggression, more posturing. The observation deck hummed with nervous energy from the 47 species gathered to witness humanity's military deployment. Most had only known humans as merchants, scientists, researchers, the friendly. Newcomers who traded eagerly and asked endless questions about galactic history. Now those same humans were loading weapons onto transport ships with mechanical efficiency that spoke of long practice. Below them, Commander Harris supervised the embarkation procedures. Her face showed no emotion, just focused concentration. Rollin had studied human facial expressions extensively. He recognized this as what humans called their game face, a deliberate suppression of feeling to maintain professional composure. The Korthax won't know what hit them, Ambassador Chun remarked to a cluster of nervous Antarian delegates. Our people have been doing this for a very long time. That statement rippled through the observers like electricity. A very long time. How long exactly? Rollin pulled up human historical data on his tablet, scrolling through conflicts that seemed to never end. The 100 Years' War. The 30 Years' War. 2 world wars. Countless smaller conflicts that dotted human history like stars in the night sky. Rollin. Kira's voice pulled him from his research. Why do they keep checking their equipment? They've done it 5 times already. He watched a young human soldier disassemble and reassemble her rifle for the 6th time, her hands moving with practiced precision. Other soldiers nearby performed similar rituals, checking ammunition counts, adjusting armor straps, reviewing tactical displays. I believe it's preparation, Rollins said slowly, but also something else. Respect, perhaps. A Volturi trade minister scoffed from behind them. Respect for what? Killing. The words carried. Several humans glanced up at the observation deck, their expressions unreadable. Commander Harris didn't react at all. She simply continued her work, but Rollin noticed the subtle stiffening in shoulders throughout the human ranks. They had heard the insult. They simply chose not to respond. Ambassador Wilson appeared beside the Volturi minister, his weathered face carrying lines that spoke of decades of diplomatic service. Respect for the weight of what they're about to do, he said quietly. My people don't celebrate going to war. We recognize its necessity while mourning its inevitability. The first transport began loading. Human soldiers filed aboard in perfect formation. No cheering, no war cries, just quiet professionalism. Rollin noted this in his official observer logs, comparing it to historical records of other species' military operations. The Korthax themselves went to war with great ceremony, ritual combat dances, declarations of glory. Humans just went to work. I've been reviewing their requests for deployment. A Centauri military analyst named Draven spoke up, addressing the gathered observers. They asked for complete operational autonomy. No oversight. No observers embedded with combat units. No real-time reporting to the council. Nervous murmurs spread through the crowd. Giving humans unlimited authority seemed risky. What if they decided not to stop after defeating the Korthax? What if the galaxy had just armed a potential threat? Kira voiced what many were thinking. Can we trust them with that much freedom? Rollin watched Commander Harris below. She was speaking to a young soldier who looked barely old enough to serve, her hand on his shoulder, her expression gentle. The soldier nodded, straightened, joined his unit. Harris watched him go, with something like sorrow in her eyes before returning to her duties. Look at how they interact with each other, Rollins said, pointing. The commander, she clearly cares about her subordinates. This isn't mindless aggression. Another transport loaded. Then another. The process moved with clockwork precision, each soldier carrying equipment that Rollins' species would find impossibly heavy. Humans were death worlders. Their planet had shaped them into something simultaneously fragile and remarkably durable. Ambassador Wilson, Rollin called out. May I ask a question? The human diplomat nodded. Of course, your history shows thousands of wars, conflicts spanning your entire recorded civilization. How do your people maintain their humanity through so much violence? Wilson's expression grew distant, contemplative. We don't always succeed, he admitted. We've made terrible mistakes, committed atrocities we can never take back, but we try. We created laws of war, rules of engagement, concepts like war crimes specifically because we know how easy it is to lose ourselves in chaos. Your species created laws to limit your own behavior in warfare. Draven seemed shocked by this. Why would warriors restrict themselves? Because we're not just warriors, Wilson replied. We're humans first, soldiers second. The moment we forget that, we've already lost the most important battle. The final transport finished loading. Commander Harris stood at attention as the ships began their departure sequence. She raised her hand in a crisp salute, every soldier visible through. The transport windows returned it. Then the ships lifted, engines thrumming with barely contained power. Kira watched them go, her form pulsing with uncertainty. They move like they've done this before. How many wars have they fought? Rollin checked his historical database again, scrolling through conflicts that numbered in the thousands, small and large, justified and tragic, ancient and recent. An unbroken chain of warfare stretching back to humanity's earliest days, according to their history. He said quietly, the words chilling him even as he spoke them. All of them. They fought all of them. The observation deck fell silent as the transports disappeared into the darkness of space, carrying humanity's warriors toward a war the galaxy had asked them to fight. Rollins suddenly wondered if they truly understood what they had unleashed, or if the humans themselves fully grasped how their reputation was about to change forever. Commander Harris remained on the deck below, alone now, her shoulders sagging just slightly with the weight of command. Then she straightened, turned, and walked toward the next phase of deployment. Professional to the end, the war had begun. The galaxy would never see humans quite the same way again. 3 weeks into the campaign, Rollin hadn't slept properly since the war began. Not because of danger, but because he couldn't stop analyzing what he was witnessing. The war room aboard Galactic Command Station had transformed into something resembling a theater, with alien observers crowding around holographic displays showing frontline developments. This makes no sense, Admiral Thrace of the Centauri fleet muttered, staring at tactical maps. The humans have superior firepower, better positioning. They could end this with direct assault. Why are they dancing around the Corthax formations? Kira had been assigned as liaison between human forces and the Galactic Council. 3 weeks of close contact with human military operations had changed her. The naive idealism she'd carried into this conflict was evolving into something more nuanced. She pulled up a strategic analysis General Brooks had shared with her. They're not dancing, she explained. They're thinking 3 moves ahead. Look here, the Corthax expect traditional naval engagement. Fleet against fleet, territory against territory. Humans are disrupting supply lines instead, isolating command structures, spreading psychological pressure across multiple fronts. Rollin zoomed in on one sector where a small human force had somehow convinced an entire Corthax battle group to retreat without firing a shot. How did they accomplish this? There's no record of combat. Information warfare, a human tactical officer, named Lieutenant Foster said from her station. We intercepted their communications, learned their commander had family connections to the units we'd captured in Sector 7. We let him know his relatives were alive and being treated well. Asked him if he really wanted to die for leaders who'd sacrifice him without hesitation. The gathered aliens stared at her in collective shock. Using enemy psychology as a weapon was theoretically possible, but seemed unnecessarily complex. Why not just destroy the battle group? You weaponize compassion, Draven said slowly. You made him think about people he cared about during combat operations. Foster nodded. Every Korthak soldier is someone's child, someone's friend. If we can get them home alive, we do. Killing should be the last option, not the first. On the enemy side of the conflict, Tal sat in Korthak's intelligence headquarters reviewing the same data with growing dread. He'd been analyzing human tactics for 2 weeks, each day, bringing new confusion. The humans fought like nothing in Korthak's military doctrine. They appeared everywhere and nowhere, struck targets that seemed random until the larger pattern emerged. He pulled up intercepted human communications, expecting the usual military chatter about coordinates and objectives. Instead, he found discussions about minimizing civilian casualties, debates about proportional response. One conversation between human commanders spent 10 minutes discussing whether destroying a Korthak's ammunition depot was justified given its proximity to a civilian water treatment facility. They decided against it, chose a harder target instead. They're limiting themselves, Tal muttered, pulling up more intercepts, finding the same pattern repeated. Humans consistently choosing more difficult tactical options to avoid collateral damage. Why would any military force do this? His superior, Commander Vex, dismissed his concerns. It's a trick, psychological warfare to make us lower our guard. No species genuinely cares about enemy civilians during active combat. But Tal wasn't convinced. He'd seen the human prisoner camps, expecting torture facilities. He'd found medical stations. His captured soldiers reported receiving treatment for their wounds, adequate food, shelter from the elements. Some even mentioned human guards sharing rations during supply delays. Back on the command station, Rollin interviewed a human veteran named Sergeant Williams, a career soldier. With 20 years of service across multiple human conflicts, how do you reconcile being effective at warfare while maintaining ethical standards? Rollin asked. Williams considered the question carefully. We learned the hard way that winning battles doesn't mean winning wars. You can conquer every piece of ground and still lose if you lose yourself in the process. My great-grandfather fought in Earth's Second World War. Saw what happens when ethics disappear from combat. Entire cities destroyed, millions dead. Victors and defeated both scarred for generations. So you limit yourself out of fear of becoming monsters. We limit ourselves because we remember being monsters, Williams corrected. Earth's history is full of atrocities, genocides, wars fought without mercy or restraint. We paid for those lessons in blood. Millions and millions of lives lost learning what happens when you abandon your humanity in pursuit of victory. Kira listened from nearby, absorbing every word. She'd grown up believing warfare itself was barbaric, a primitive solution to problems that should be solved through dialogue. 3 weeks of watching humans fight had complicated that view significantly. But you're still very good at this, she said, gesturing to the tactical displays where human forces continue their systematic dismantling of Korthak's strategic capability. How can you be ethical and effective simultaneously? Williams smiled. Because ethics make us more effective. Soldiers who trust their commanders to value their lives fight harder. Populations who see you treat enemies fairly don't resist occupation. Enemies who know surrender means safety surrender more readily. War crimes don't just hurt the victims. They hurt everyone, including the side that commits them. On the front lines, Captain Riley's company cleared a Korthak's outpost. The enemy soldiers had retreated hastily, leaving behind wounded. Riley's first order was medical assistance, human medics treating Korthak's injuries before securing the position. One young private questioned this. Sir, shouldn't we secure the perimeter first? They could counterattack. Riley shook his head. Those wounded can't hurt us. Leaving them to suffer makes us worse soldiers, not better ones. We'll secure the perimeter while keeping them alive. We can do both. Tal intercepted the report of this incident, added it to his growing file of evidence that humans genuinely meant what they said about rules of engagement. He drafted another message to High Command, warning them that conventional warfare assumptions didn't apply to humans. The message was ignored again. Korthak's leadership believed they understood warfare. They'd conquered 6 systems before humans arrived. They had experience, pride, confidence in their martial traditions. They didn't understand they were fighting a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of organized violence, then spent the last few centuries trying desperately to contain it within ethical frameworks. Rollin closed his daily observation log with a final note. Humanity's military capability is formidable, but their true strength may lie in their ability to remain human while deploying that capability. They fight without hatred, kill without pleasure, and win without losing themselves. The galaxy has never seen anything like them. In 3 weeks, human forces had advanced further than anyone expected while maintaining casualty ratios that shocked observers. Korthak's losses were mounting, but so was something else. Doubt among their ranks about what they'd been told about these strange beings from Earth. The war was far from over, but the outcome was becoming inevitable. Dr. Patricia Cross worked with blood on her hands and exhaustion in her bones. The field hospital hummed with activity as medical personnel moved between patients with practiced efficiency. What disturbed Rollin most wasn't the human wounded, but the fact that Korthak soldiers received treatment in the same facility with the same priority. A Korthak's warrior named Drex lay on a surgical table, his thorax torn by shrapnel from his own side's artillery. Dr. Cross worked on him with absolute focus, ignoring the fact that this same soldier might have killed humans hours ago. Her hands moved with precision, repairing damage, stopping bleeding, saving a life that belonged to the enemy. Why? Drex whispered in broken galactic standard, "Why help me?" Cross didn't look up from her work. "Because you're hurt and I'm a doctor. That's all the reason I need." Rollin watched from the observation area, his notes growing longer by the hour. This casual display of medical ethics toward enemy combatants contradicted everything Korthak's propaganda had said about human barbarity. Their broadcasts claimed humans were savage, merciless, that capture meant torture and death. Instead, Drex was receiving better medical care than he'd gotten in his own military. Kira arrived carrying reports from the first liberated colony world. Her luminous form pulsed with complicated emotions. "You need to see this," she said, pulling up footage from planet Sala, where human forces had pushed out Korthaks occupiers 3 days prior. The video showed human soldiers distributing emergency supplies to terrified refugees, many of whom were cowering in fear based on Korthak's descriptions of their liberators. Captain Riley appeared in frame, kneeling to speak with a small Salian child who was crying. He offered the child a ration bar, his expression gentle despite the weapon slung across his back. The locals expected monsters, Kira explained. Korthak's command told them humans would be worse than occupation. Instead, they got disaster relief teams, medical support, and soldiers who spent their off hours helping rebuild damaged infrastructure. Governor Sala herself had sent a message to the Galactic Council. Rollin pulled it up and read aloud. "The humans fight with incredible ferocity against military targets, then turn around and carry our children to safety with infinite gentleness. I've never seen beings capable of such controlled duality. They are warriors and protectors, and they seem to know exactly when to be which." In the prisoner compound, Drex recovered under human care alongside 200 other captured Korthak soldiers. The facility wasn't what he'd expected. No torture chambers, no interrogation rooms designed for cruelty. Instead, clean barracks, adequate food, medical attention, and human guards who treated prisoners with professional courtesy. A human interrogator named Anderson interviewed him 3 days after his surgery. Drex expected pain, manipulation, threats. Instead, Anderson asked questions and actually listened to the answers, taking notes, showing no anger even when Drex described missions against human positions. "You were following orders," Anderson said simply. "We understand that. What we need to know is command structure, supply routes, things that help us end this war faster with fewer casualties on both sides." "Why should I help you?" Anderson leaned back. "Because every day this war continues. More people die, yours and ours. You've seen how we treat prisoners, how we handle civilians. We're not the monsters your commanders described, but we are very good at warfare. This ends one of 2 ways. Korthak surrender and negotiate, or we dismantle your military capability piece by piece until surrender is the only option. Cooperation speeds up the first option, reduces total casualties. Drex found himself believing this human. Worse, found himself wanting to help end a war he was increasingly convinced his side had started for the wrong reasons. Back at the field hospital, Dr. Cross finished a 30-hour shift and collapsed into a chair. Rollin approached cautiously. "May I ask you something?" She nodded, too tired to speak. "How do you treat enemy wounded with the same care as your own people? Don't you feel anger toward them?" Cross rubbed her eyes. "I feel lots of things, but when someone's bleeding on my table, they're not enemy or ally. They're a patient. My oath is to do no harm. That doesn't have exceptions for whose side someone fights on. Besides," she added, "most of these kids didn't choose this war. They're just caught in it like everyone else." Captain Riley entered with his after-action report. His uniform still dusty from the relief operations on Sala. "Governor's office sent thanks," he told Cross. "Also requested more medical supplies. Their infrastructure took a beating during occupation." "Put it on the list," Cross said. "We'll include it in the next supply run." Rollin marveled at this. Humans conducting warfare and humanitarian relief simultaneously, with the same efficiency applied to both. He'd interviewed Riley earlier, learned the captain had degrees in civil engineering and international development before joining the military. Many human officers had similar backgrounds, educated in fields beyond warfare. "Why become a soldier if you have other skills?" Rollin had asked. Riley's answer stayed with him. "Because sometimes the only way to protect people is to fight for them. I'd rather build schools than fight wars. But if fighting means those schools stay safe, then that's what I'll do." The goal isn't victory for its own sake. It's creating conditions where victory isn't necessary anymore. Kira compiled testimonials from liberated civilians, each one contradicting Korthak's propaganda more severely. Humans weren't conquerors. They were protectors who fought with precision to minimize harm. Their rules of engagement were stricter than any military doctrine and galactic records. One incident stood out. A human unit had taken fire from a Korthak's position inside a civilian building. Rather than level the structure, they'd spent 6 hours planning a surgical raid that neutralized the threat while ensuring no civilian casualties. 3 human soldiers were wounded in the operation, injuries they could have avoided with simpler, more destructive tactics. They chose the harder path because it was the right one. Tao reviewed all of this from Korthak's intelligence, his reports growing more urgent, more desperate. "High Command must understand. We're not fighting a typical military force. Humans have rules they won't break, even when breaking them would be easier. They value enemy lives, protect civilians at cost to themselves. This isn't weakness. It's a different kind of strength we don't understand." His messages continued to be ignored, dismissed as enemy propaganda, somehow influencing their intelligence officer. But Tal knew better. He'd seen the truth in countless intercepted communications, prisoner testimonials, civilian reports. Humans were exactly what they claimed to be, and that made them far more dangerous than any conventional enemy, because humans fought to win, but refused to win in ways that made them monsters. That kind of principled warfare was utterly foreign to Korthak's doctrine, and it was destroying them. Alarms screamed through the command station at 0400 hours. Rollin jerked awake, his compound eyes adjusting to emergency lighting as he rushed toward the war room. Kira was already there, her luminous form flickering with distress as she reviewed incoming reports. "They hit civilian targets," she said. "Voice hollow, hospitals, schools, refugee centers, 6 simultaneous attacks across multiple systems. War Master Krell authorized strikes on non-military installations. The holographic displays showed devastation. A children's hospital on Andrus Prime reduced to rubble. A refugee processing center on Talax burning. Medical ships marked with neutrality symbols destroyed in space." Korthak's leadership had abandoned all pretense of honorable warfare. General Brooks stood like a statue before the tactical displays, his face carved from stone. Around him, human officers monitored responses with barely controlled fury. Rollin had never seen humans truly angry before. the cold precision radiating from them was somehow more frightening than any display of rage. Recommendations, Brooks said, his voice level. Full retaliation, one officer suggested. Surgical strikes against Korthak's civilian infrastructure. Show them what happens when they break the rules. We have targeting data for their leadership bunkers, another added. We could end this today with maximum force. Brooks remained silent, jaw working. Then he spoke. No, we don't follow the rules because they do. We follow them because of who we are. Hitting their civilians makes us no better than Krell. I won't sacrifice our principles for revenge, sir. A younger officer protested. They massacred innocent people. Don't we owe it to the victims to respond? We owe it to the victims to make sure this never happens again. Brooks corrected. That means ending this war, not escalating it. We go after military targets, command and control, supply lines, leadership. We dismantle their capacity to wage war while maintaining our rules of engagement, increase operational tempo, expand special forces deployments. But we do not become what we're fighting against. Kira watched this exchange with something like awe. The humans had every justification to unleash unlimited force. Most species would, yet they held the line on their ethics even now. Especially now. Broadcast a message to all Korthak's forces. Brooks ordered, make it clear, their leadership ordered these attacks. Not them. Soldiers who surrender will receive protection. We're coming for the war criminals in command, not the troops following orders. Tao received that broadcast in his office, watching it 3 times. The human general's face showed controlled anger, not mindless fury. Every word carefully chosen. Your leaders have crossed lines that condemn them. But you, the soldiers and citizens of the Korthak's hegemony, you are not our enemies. Lay down your arms. Surrender, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Resist, and we will remove you from the battlefield. But we will not target your families, your homes, your civilians, because we refuse to become monsters to fight monsters. For the first time since the war began, Tal felt hope. Hope that this might end without total destruction. He began drafting orders to units under his influence, suggesting surrender as a viable option on the front lines. Human Special Forces units deployed with new urgency, not attacking blindly, but surgically removing Korthaks. Command infrastructure, communication hubs went dark, supply depots disappeared, leadership bunkers found themselves isolated, cut off from their forces. Captain Riley's company rescued civilians from an active war zone, taking casualties to protect non-combatants. One soldier, Private Chun, was hit covering the evacuation of alien children. Riley held pressure on the wound while calling for medevac. You're going to be fine. Hang on. Chun grimaced. Did the kids make it out? All of them. Because of you. Then it was worth it, Chun whispered before passing out. Rollin watched the rescue footage. Understanding crystallizing. Humans didn't just have rules of engagement. They believed in them, enough to die for them. Chin might have saved herself by abandoning the civilians. Instead, she chose to protect them at personal cost. In the Korthak's capital, War Master Krell reviewed devastating reports. His forces were deserting en masse, entire units laying down arms and requesting human protection. His tactical advantages disappeared as human forces systematically dismantled his command structure. Worse, his own people were turning against him. The humans have isolated your position, Tao reported, having finally gained access to command level. They're offering terms. Surrender and face justice for the civilian attacks. Refuse, and they'll remove you by force. Either way, the war is over. Krell's face contorted with rage. I was assured humans would break under pressure. That their so-called ethics would crumble. Instead, they've only become more determined. Because their ethics aren't a weakness, Tal said, meeting his commander's eyes. They're the foundation of their strength. They've fought this way for centuries, refined these principles through countless conflicts. They know exactly what they're doing. The galactic community watched in real time as human forces executed the most precise military campaign in recorded history. Every strike calculated, every target verified, Civilian casualties approached zero while military effectiveness reached unprecedented levels. Kira addressed an emergency council session. Humanity has shown us something we didn't believe possible: ethical warfare at maximum efficiency. They've been tested, provoked, given every excuse to abandon restraint. Instead, they've proven their principles mean something. They're not suggestions, they're foundations. Governor Sala testified via video link. When Korthax occupied our world, they ruled through fear. When humans liberated us, they protected us at cost to themselves. The difference is everything. One species fights to dominate, the other fights to protect. I know which one I trust. Ambassador Wilson fielded countless questions from nervous alien governments. You want to know if we'll stop when this ends? Yes. You want to know if we could be trusted with military power? Watch what we do when we have every reason not to be trustworthy. We're angry. We're hurt. We have overwhelming force. And we're still following the rules. Still protecting civilians. Still treating prisoners with dignity. That's your answer. Drex recovered from his injuries. Addressed other prisoners. I was told humans were barbarians. Instead, they saved my life, treated my wounds, fed me, gave me shelter. Our own leadership ordered attacks on children, while humans risked themselves to protect those same children. Perhaps we're fighting for the wrong side. Murmurs of agreement spread through the compound, prisoners writing to families, to former comrades, describing their treatment, spreading truth that contradicted years of propaganda. Within 48 hours of the civilian attacks, Korthak's military cohesion collapsed completely. Tal coordinated mass surrenders. War Master Krell found himself abandoned by his own forces, isolated in his command bunker with only loyalists remaining. General Brooks received the surrender requests with grim satisfaction, accepting all. Surrenders, full protection guaranteed, medical treatment, food, shelter, family contact. Process them properly. By the book, the war was ending. Not through annihilation, but through demonstration. Humans had shown the galaxy something new. That you could be fierce and fair, effective and ethical, powerful and principled. They'd proven their reputation wasn't built on fear, but on trust earned through consistent action. 6 months after the ceasefire, Rollin stood before a memorial wall containing names carved in 43 different languages. Human casualties listed beside Korthax, beside civilian losses, all remembered together without distinction. General Brooks approached silently, placing flowers at the base. We honor everyone who died. Brooks said quietly, even enemies. They were all someone's child, someone's friend. War doesn't change that. Rollin had spent those 6 months compiling his chronicle, attempting to capture what humanity had taught the galaxy. The words felt inadequate. How do you explain a species that wages war with both precision and compassion, that views violence as necessary evil rather than glorious calling? The surrender ceremony had been simple. War Master Krell and his remaining leadership accepting terms that included fair trials. Tal stood beside them, having negotiated much of the agreement. His testimony would be crucial in the proceedings. I refused illegal orders, Tal explained to the tribunal. Human doctrine requires soldiers to disobey immoral commands. When I learned this, I understood my own responsibility. I could have stopped some of what happened. I chose not to act. That makes me complicit. His honesty shocked observers. Korthak's military culture didn't include concepts like personal accountability for following orders. But exposure to human military ethics had changed him, given him framework to understand his own failures. Dr. Cross worked in rebuilt hospitals on formerly occupied worlds, training local medical staff in trauma care. Her hands still steady despite months of continuous deployment. The war's over, but the healing takes longer, she told Rollin during an interview. We stay until they don't need us anymore. Captain Riley's engineering background proved valuable during reconstruction. His unit transformed from combat force to construction crew, building schools and infrastructure on Sala. The same soldiers who'd fought through Korthak's defenses now poured concrete and installed water systems. This is the job we actually signed up for, Riley said, watching his troops work alongside local civilians. The fighting is what we do when we have to. This is what we want to do. Kira addressed the Galactic Council with findings from her 6-month observation period. Humanity doesn't glorify warfare. They study it to prevent it. Every military academy includes extensive ethics training. Every officer learns humanitarian law alongside tactics. They build monuments not to celebrate victories, but to remember costs. They teach their children about war's horrors to discourage its repetition. She pulled up statistics. Human post-war aid exceeding their military expenditure. Reconstruction efforts in former enemy territory. Educational exchanges with Korthax youth. They're not trying to dominate the species they defeated. They're trying to ensure future generations don't repeat this conflict. Governor Sala's testimony carried weight. My people were caught between two forces, one that occupied us, one that liberated us. The difference was everything. Korthax ruled through fear. Humans protected through strength. When they could have claimed our world, they instead helped us rebuild our government, trained our security forces, and prepared to leave. That's not conquest, that's guardianship. Drex appeared before the council as well. Wearing simple civilian clothes, I was a soldier, believed in my cause, thought humans were threats to galactic peace. Then I became their prisoner, received medical care, fair treatment, education about what my government had actually done. I'm not asking you to forgive Korthax. I'm asking you to recognize that humans showed us a better way, even when we didn't deserve it. Roland's chronicle was published with the simple title, The Paradox of Human Warfare. It became required reading in diplomatic schools across the galaxy. His opening statement captured the core truth. Humans are not peaceful. They are controlled. The distinction matters. Peaceful species avoid violence because they lack capacity for it. Humans avoid violence because they understand its consequences. When forced to fight, they do so with devastating effectiveness. But they fight to end conflicts, not perpetuate them. The Galactic Council convened to vote on humanity's role in galactic security. Debates raged for weeks. Some species remained wary, concerned about human military capability. Others advocated for immediate partnership. Ambassador Wilson addressed the assembly with characteristic directness. You asked us to go to war. We showed you how we wage peace. We didn't have to follow rules of engagement. We chose to. We didn't have to protect civilians at cost to ourselves. We chose to. We didn't have to treat prisoners with dignity. We chose to. Judge us by our choices under pressure, not your fears about what we might do. The vote passed. Humanity granted Permanent Security Council seat, authorized to train other species in military ethics, coordinate galactic defense operations. Their reputation transformed from unknown newcomers to trusted protectors. But humans themselves seemed ambivalent about the recognition. General Brooks accepted the honor with visible discomfort. We don't want to be known as warriors. We want to be known as people who protect others when necessary. The goal isn't perfecting warfare. It's making warfare obsolete. Roland visited Earth for his research, walked through museums dedicated to human conflicts. The displays shocked him. Graphic depictions of war's horror. No glorification. Just honest accounting of costs. Memorials to victims rather than celebrations of victors. At Arlington Cemetery, he stood with General Brooks among endless rows of simple markers. My son, Brooks said, gesturing to one stone. Border skirmish. 3 years before this war. He was 22. You sent others to die, while grieving your own. Every commander should know that weight, Brooks replied. It keeps us honest, keeps us human. The moment we stop feeling the cost, we become dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with military capability. They stood in silence. Two beings from different worlds, united by understanding that warfare's necessity doesn't excuse its tragedy. 10 years later, Roland would update his chronicle with a final observation. The galaxy asked humanity to march into war. We expected monsters. We got protectors. They didn't just defeat an enemy. They demonstrated that violence and ethics need not be contradictory, that strength and compassion can coexist, that the measure of civilization isn't avoiding conflict entirely. It's remaining civilized during conflict. Humanity taught us this, not through lectures or philosophy, but through action under the worst possible circumstances. Their true reputation was earned not by what they destroyed, but by what they refused to become while destroying it. The memorial walls stood testament to that truth. Names carved in stone, remembered forever. Human, Korthax, civilian, military, all equal in death, all honored in memory. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not superior warfare, but the understanding that even in war, dignity matters, ethics matter, humanity matters. They'd marched into war and brought civilization with them.